Hello everyone, today I'm at Billings Estate Museum in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. This is a special historic hidden gem and I'm going to take you on a tour. Let's go check it out. The Billings House. Park Hill was built by Bradish Billings, a pioneer in local lumbering agriculture. Born in Massachusetts in 1783, he was the first settler of Gloucester Township. In 1812, his homestead forming the nucleus of Billings Bridge. In symmetry and classical detail, Park Hill draws on New England architecture of the Georgian period. The original house was built in 1828, but the north wing, which may have been moved intact from an earlier Billings home, was added in 1831. Later, a veranda was removed and the dormers and south wing added. Billings died in 1864 at Park Hill, which was occupied by his descendants until 1975. And here is the house. It is an absolutely gorgeous estate. It's got huge grounds, and there are actually a tent there and a tent in the back for parties. So here's a map of the property that we're going to explore today. Welcome to the Billings Estate National Historic Site. The fine wood frame house before you, the oldest of its kind in Ottawa, was home to Bradish and Lamira Billings, the first settlers of Gloucester Township. In 1813, the newly married couple faced the challenge of carving a living for themselves from the wilderness. Through hard work and determination, they raised 7 children and built a prosperous farming enterprise. 5 generations of Billings lived in this house. Many made their mark in business, politics, and science and helped the community flourish. When the last of the Billings moved away, local heritage groups and the city of Ottawa saved the home and the remaining lands. Wander the grounds and visit the museum to learn more about the legacy of this remarkable family. So here's a map of the property. So this is the main house. There's a vegetable garden here. There's a herb garden here. This is a smokehouse. This is the farmhand's house. This is the tombstone garage. This is the Cadillac garage, the wood shed, the ice house, and then this is the marquee tents where there will be parties. And to the left of the property is a graveyard. And then in the back you can find, this is the tent where they do the tea parties. All right, so we're gonna go explore the buildings that are on the outside of this, and then we'll go inside the house and explore the exhibits in there. So right here, there's a few buildings you can explore. Unfortunately, there's only one you can actually go into, but there's some signage, and I can walk around and show them to you. So this one is the smokehouse. So, Lemire Billings was a respected healer in the community. She collected plants from farm and field for homemade remedies to treat all manner of ailments from cough and colds to cancer. These small gardens on the grounds today would not likely have been part of the landscape in Lemire's time. There is little evidence of any ornamental plantings near the house until well into the 20th century. However, a variety of the herbs and other flowers cultivated in these beds were also have been grown in earlier days for cooking and for natural cures. Here, it's just a stone path and a small garden. So on my left is the farmhand's house. I really like the shutters. All the buildings are in incredible shape. And then over here, there's a couple of other buildings. So this one we can actually go into. Okay, so this one is called the Ice House. So there is a small exhibit in here that I can show you. So, did you know ice cut from the Rita River was considered to be better than that from the Ottawa River? It had fewer air bubbles and did not melt as quickly. So there are some old equipment here. So it says horses were used to haul sleigh loaded with ice blocks and to pull snowplows to keep the river clear for cutting. So this house is thought to have been built about 1840. The thick stone walls and evidence uncovered during an archaeological survey show that it was used to store ice and keep dairy products cold to avoid spoiling. At some later point, it was probably used as living quarters. Without ice, the Billings family could not have operated a full-scale dairy business. They were fortunate to have easy access to the Rita River for a free supply of ice in winter. Once cut into blocks, the ice was stored here all summer under an insulating cover of sawdust. The ice industry. Ice cutting and storage was an important industry in the days before refrigeration. As their dairy operation grew, the Billings probably purchased ice in bulk from a local supplier. Here's a picture. Saberin and Henry's Ice House employees cutting ice on the Rita River, 1937. Workers were careful not to cut blocks all the way to the bottom to prevent water from seeping up and resealing the divisions. Close up of the picture. It says this is ice cutting on the Rita River Billings Bridge. Here's another picture. Okay, so in the 1920s, storage facilities like this one could hold over 50,000 blocks of ice. So this is Saberin and Henry Ice House, Rooney's Lane, Billings Bridge. Ice cutting was labor intensive A series of parallel lines were cut using special saws and then cross-cut to form blocks. And the last one, the first block was usually difficult to pry loose and was often intentionally broken for easier removal of the rest. All right, let's go explore the rest of the external buildings before we go inside the main estate house. So here, there's a sign on it that says wood shed. And then this building here was the Cadillac garage. And then here you got a better view of the farmhand's house. Fortunately, I can't go inside, but it's super cute. As I said, I love the shutters. It's got like half moon and diamonds on them. And then these are the front gates to the estate. Here's the other side of that little garden with a pathway. And then over here is the tombstone garage. So this is kind of fascinating to look at. They rescued historic tombstones. That we can explore. So there's a sign here. So these marble headstones are from the Billings Cemetery. Dating to the 1930s, they replaced original grave markers. Vandals knocked over the headstones sometime before 1975 when the cemetery was restored by the city of Ottawa in 1979. The headstones were removed as a precaution before being put on display. So did you know the Billings Cemetery is one of the oldest burial plots in the Ottawa area? It is located at the south end of the estate. It is open for visitors to explore. I will take you there later. So here's some images. There it shows when they were damaged, which is terrible. And here they are. So yeah, a lot of them you can see where they were damaged. So it's really fantastic that they rescued them. Oh, so this one, September 23rd, 1783, and died at Gloucester, April 3rd, 1864. And that is Bradish Billings. And this is Lamira Dow. Died at Gloucester, March 6th. I believe that says 1878, but it's hard to read. This is Sabra Billings, died at Billings Bridge, Ontario, October 27th, 1912. Bradish Billings died at Billings Bridge, September 29th, 1871, at 52 years old. Samuel Billings, born Billings Bridge and died June, I believe it says 28th, 1810. Kind of hard to read. This one, Sally Billings, died at Billings Bridge, Ontario, September 8th, 1916, I think it says. This one is too hard to read. This one is Charles Billings, died Billings Bridge, November 29th, 1906. And lastly, Amelia Traveler, and she died April 1st, 1926. So definitely don't mess up this garage with the tombstones, because it's definitely a special part of Ottawa's history. Okay, so now we're gonna go inside the house. There is lots of fantastic historical exhibits inside it. One last look at it before we go in. Okay, so over here is the entrance. Before I go in, just want to point out that there are washrooms here. And tickets are $8. So who in the Billing family? Explore the family tree to find out more about the descendants of Lemira and Bradish. Many made a name for themselves in Gloucester and beyond. They include a celebrated scientist, a published poet, an artist, an architect, soldiers, socialites, and others from different walks of life. So, see pictures. It's kind of an awesome way to display a family tree. As a pioneer woman, Lemira had an incredible number of responsibilities. In addition to caring for her 7 children, she had to cook, clean, make the clothes, tend the garden, and fill the roles of teacher, doctor, farmhand, and business partner. Without her, the Billings Estate would never have flourished for 150 years. Much of Lemira's time was devoted to caring for the children. She and Bradish had 9 children within the first 14 years of marriage. 2 of them died young. So Lamira grew herbs and collected plants from the wild to create homemade remedies for treating the ailments of family, friends, and workers. You may be surprised by some of the ingredients. Catnip for a cold. Here is fireplace. Some artifacts. So Lamira prepared meals using basic utensils like the one you see here. In addition to her growing family, there might be another 2 dozen mouths to feed when hired farmhands arrived each summer. Cleaning the house, doing the laundry, putting up preserves, every part of running the household fell to Lamira. She even made her own candles and soap. Almost every piece of clothing for the entire family was made by Lamira. She knitted and sewed, spun the wool, and wove her own clothes. Did you know? Hidden behind the wall to your right is a bake oven. Lamira used it to make biscuits and bread to serve with the soup and stews she cooked over a fire in the hearth. Bradish and Lamira took every opportunity to expand their business base. In 1823, they started a sawmill to fill the demand for building lumber. For several years, they ran a ferry service across the Rita River and then led the push for a bridge to replace it. In 1859, the bridge was named Billings Bridge. For a time, the enterprising Billings were licensed innkeepers. They opened their home to the growing number of settlers and travelers arriving in Gloucester. So there is, kind of hard to see, but there is an exhibit behind the glass. Bradish set out to make enough money to buy land with the goal of becoming a full-time farmer. He purchased property with his earnings from the booming timber trade and his construction contracts on the new Rideau Canal. Over time, the Billings farm grew into an estate at the center of a promising settlement. Did you know winter was the best time for cutting timber? It was easier to fell trees and drag them out of the bush over ice and snow. So felling, squaring, and hauling logs had to be done by hand. Bradish was young, strong, and ambitious. He supplied thousands of feet of pine and oak to ready buyers. Taking timber to market was a dangerous challenge. Massive rafts of logs had to be moved by water all the way to Quebec City. Rapids and waterfalls were just a few of the hazards along the way. In 1826, work began on the Rideau Canal to link the Ottawa River and Lake Ontario. Bradish won the contract to construct buildings for the base of operations. He also supplied fresh produce to feed canal workers. So this is a painting of Billings' first home. Bradish chose an ideal location to settle. The land was thick with forest and offered easy access to the Rideau River. Within a year, he replaced his shanty with a cabin, and a year after that with the small frame house pictured here. 12 years later, the family built the house you are standing in now. And here's a map. Map of the located districts in the province of Upper Canada in January 1813. There's tons more things to see in here. It says that this is an I Spy. Have a peek at what the orchard might have looked like in 1925. 2 acres of apples and plums were once planted here. Oh, so you can use this to be a spy. So this says, did you know every year at Christmas the family would burn a large Yule log in the fireplace? A log so big that it took 2 people to carry it in. The early years of hard work paid off handsomely for Lemira and Bradish. They were able to build this fine house in 1828 and eventually increased their land holdings to more than 1,200 acres. Many of their children and grandchildren pursued other interests beyond the farm, but the Billings Estate would remain the family home for almost 150 years. So this is a view of the house pre-1900. Sisters Sabra and Sally inherited the family home in 1864 and lived here together as spinsters for the rest of their lives. After inheriting the house from his aunts, Charles Murray Billings began to modernize the house in the 1920s. And I just wanted to point out, hopefully you can see, just so right there is where the tea parties are. I'll put a link in the description of, you have to reserve a spot to attend one of these tea parties. But it's a really lovely experience sitting in the garden there having a little tea party. 4 generations of Billings played a part in Canada's military history. Members of the family served in various roles from the time of the Upper Canada rebellions in the 1830s to the First World War almost a century later. One of them made the ultimate sacrifice of giving his life for his country. So here's pictures. So this is Bradish Billings III, Charles Alexander Billings, and Second Lieutenant Hugh Bradish Billings II. So he was killed in France during the First World War when his plane was shot down by German fighters. Charles Alexander Billings enlisted in the Canadian Army in 1914 at the age of 18. After recovering from a serious illness during training that almost left him paralyzed, he rose to the ranks of captain. And Bradish Billings III was a captain in the No. 4 Company of the 43rd Battalion during the 1885 Northwest Rebellion. So down here, so Bradish Billings the first enlisted in the 1st Regiment of the Russell Militia during the Upper Canada Rebellion. This certificate shows his promotion to major in 1838. Charles Billings joined the 4th Battalion of Russell as a lieutenant and was promoted to captain in 1859. And then here it says, open the case to learn how some of the Billings women took part in the war effort. Oh. On here it says, Amelia and Maria, daughters of Hugh Bradish I, both took a nursing course to help wounded soldiers on the home front. This is a St. John's ambulance certificate. Lemire was a devout woman who passed on to the children her interest in religion. Many of her children and grandchildren built or supported various churches in the area, including the Methodist, Presbyterian, and Free Church of Scotland, as well as a place of worship. Church offered social activities that brought the community together. So this person is George Fox, founded the Religious Society of Friends, better known as the Quakers in England in the 1600s. As a Quaker, Lemire would have supported public health and education, human rights, and women's suffrage. And then, in the absence of a Quaker community in Gloucester, Lemire was baptized a Presbyterian in 1831. She attended St. Andrew's Church and later Knox Church in Bytown, now Ottawa. According to her grandnieces, Sabra was particular about her appearance. She had a lovely complexion, which she protected by wearing a veil, even in old age. She always wore lace, pantaloons, hand-knit white socks, and black satin shoes with a diamond buckle. So Sabra Billings, Lemire Billings, and Sally Billings. The Billings daughters enjoyed a certain degree of independence, unusual for women in Victorian times, thanks to schooling and land of their own. inherited from their father, Sabra and Sally were able to break with tradition. They managed their own incomes, became skilled business women, and led active social lives. While they remained spinsters, their sister Lemira opted for a more conventional life of marriage and motherhoods. So did you know in 1867, Sabra built the community its first church, the Free Church of Scotland. Until the later construction of other churches in the area, it was open to various denominations. So several members of the family devoted themselves to the study of nature and science, a popular pastime in the Victorian era. 3 generations of Billings men collected specimens of rocks, fossils, plants, or insects. Some of these discoveries brought worldwide recognition to the family name. So this here is Elkanah Billings. He became Canada's first paleontologist. His prolific scientific writings and remarkable discoveries over 600 new genera and more than 1,000 new species of fossils made him world famous. Mount Billings in the Yukon is named for him. Bradish III and his brother Walter were both architects and amateur paleontologists. Like their father before them, they were members of the Ottawa Field Naturalist Club. Walter donated fossils from his collections to the British Museum. Bradish II was a founder of the Botanical Society of Canada and vice president of the Entomological Society of Canada. He identified 2,000 species of plants in the Prescott area alone. Some of his collection went to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. And lastly, this is Charles Alexander. His interest in geology led to a position as a mining engineer. For a time, he prospected for gold and managed mines in northern Ontario. Okay, so there's more exhibits over here. Did you know to pass the time during one long trip by ox cart to her Montreal boarding school, 14-year-old Sabra stitched a dozen chair covers for the Billings drawing room. And so in here, there's a bunch of things to look at. So this sampler was stitched by Lemira's mother. How old was she when she made it? Search for the answer by reading the message hidden among the numbers and symbols. I don't know. Definitely pause this and comment below if you can see the message. Search for the answer by reading the message hidden among the numbers and symbols. These are oils for paintings from China. Did you know, like his mother, Charles Billings was a teacher. He taught school at Billings Bridge from 1856 to 1863. All kinds of interesting things in here. School objects from historical schools. Yeah. So at the bottom, that is an eraser. The second one is glue. The red one is a nib pen. The next one is called a slate pencil. That is a pencil. And that's what a ruler used to look like. And lastly, an inkwell. So Bradish and Lamira believed in the value of a good education. They provided home tutors for the children and built the first schoolhouse for the community in 1824. Almost all their children and grandchildren went on to further education in Ottawa and beyond. Even daughter Sabra attended college at a time when girls generally stayed home. Some more interesting things in here. So this is a draft of a poem by Charles Billings. And this, you got a quill pen and a book of poetry by Charles Billings. Canadian naturalist and geologist, journal edited by, hard to read, Elkanah Billings. Books were a major source of entertainment and instruction for the Billings. Their impressive library was once housed in the room you are standing in now. It contained more than 4,200 volumes of prose and poetry, histories, biographies, journals, and how-to manuals, including several on etiquette. Some of the family took up writing themselves and became published authors. So did you know the Byron Market was a busy supply center filled with stalls and shops selling everything from baked goods, brooms, and bottles to saddles, soaps, and shoes? So that is located in downtown Ottawa. By the 1880s, the Billings were growing a wider variety of vegetable crops to meet increased market demand. They eventually also planted an orchard, installed greenhouses, and cultivated berries and other fruits. The Billings kept bees to pollinate their fruit trees in order to increase yield. They also collected honey and wax for a variety of uses. And in this box, let's see, beekeepers sliced the wax caps off of the honeycomb before placing it in an extractor. The Billings may have used box-shaped hives like this as homes for their bees to make wax and honey. There's the box. Okay, so we saw this earlier, so this is what it looks like when it's standing up. That's the, I believe it was called an I Spy. Wow, this is really neat. has Buckeye on it. Using an incubator like this one to hatch chicks freed up mother hens to lay more eggs. So this is a poultry incubator. I would not have guessed that. The family began specializing in dairy production in the 1900s. Large quantities of milk and cream were produced under the name of Billings Brothers Farms. For most of the 19th century, the women in the family were in charge of cheese and butter production. Output reached a peak in 1850 when they churned out an incredible 15,000 pounds of cheese and 500 pounds of butter in a single year. Wow. So I believe this is a butter churn. And then here, see, so wooden molds were used to add an artistic touch to Billings butter and bring a better price at market. Oh, fascinating. They would mold butter into interesting shapes. The family raised chickens for both meat and eggs. The surplus was sold directly to neighbors or at the Byward market. So, did you know in 3 generations within the Billings family, only 3 out of the 14 women ever married? That's pretty fascinating for those times. The Byward Market was the center of commerce for the entire region. From its beginnings in 1827 until well into the 1930s, the Billings came here to sell their produce. As the community grew, business boomed and the family prospered. So then and now, lift the flaps for scenes of the Byward Market today. Okay, so this says chicken peddler at the market in 1926. Wow, so that's what it looked like. And this is what it looks like now. This is the market in Ottawa, July 1918. Wow, look at that. You got a mixture of cars and horses and buggies in 1918. And this is what it looks like today. Quite the stark difference. This is a fruit market, Ottawa, September 1922. This is what it looks like today. And lastly, this is a market scene in Ottawa, July 1921. And this is what it looks like today. That's what it looked like. And this is what it is today. That is so neat to see how much things changed. There's one more exhibit over here. So the Billings legacy. The Billings began the world here as the first settlers of Gloucester. Through 4 generations, they made their mark in business, politics, Finance, education, culture, religion, and society. Explore the timeline to learn more about the many contributions the Billings family made to their community. So, at the top, it shows this fascinating timeline. You've got here 1975. Okay, so I will just show you a few of the interesting things down here. So Lemira and Bradish began married life in a rustic cabin at the edge of the Rideau River in 1813. Within a year, the first of 9 children is born. Oh, there's like an axe. Oh, so it says this is a lantern. By 1827, the Bradish is able to concentrate on full-time farming. The family prospers and moves into this impressive house in 1829. Hopefully you can see it with the glare. That's a picture. And then from 1825 to 1850, Bradish fills a number of leadership roles in the community, including warden, town clerk, assessor, collector, pound keeper, overseer of highways, councillors, and justice of the peace. Charles Billings and a group of private citizens built the Carleton County General Protestant Hospital in 1849 in response to a recent typhoid epidemic. No government funding is involved. Patients, Protestant only, have to pay for their own treatment. Interesting. And this is an egg cup. Carleton General Protestant Hospital. A bridge across the Rideau River would provide an important link with the market in Bytown. In 1831, Bradish donates the necessary land and leads the funding drive to make it happen. The name changes from Farmers Bridge to Billings Bridge in 1859. Here's a closer look. So Billings Bridge after a flood on the Rideau River, 1904. And this is New Billings Bridge opening day, 1915. The Township of Gloucester held its first meeting in 1832 at an inn on the site of Ottawa's present-day airport. 20 years later, Bradish provided the land and money for building the first town hall in Billings Bridge. So this is Gloucester Township Hall. Acting as an unofficial banker, Bradish supplies land and financing for the first post office and general store. He leases land and lends money to other residents and businesses. So this is a postal scale. Bradish helps bring the Bytown and Prescott railways to the area. His seat on the Planning Committee ensures that a flag station stop is located on his property for local residences. So it says this is the Bytown and Prescott Railway advertisement. The Billings sell a parcel of land beside the town hall to the Gloucester Agricultural Society from 1874 to 1904. It is the site of the annual fall fair, an important event for the entire community, especially farmers. So, hopefully you can see that. Agricultural fair ribbons. Sabra donates land and money to build the first permanent church in Billings Bridge, the Freed Church of Scotland, in 1867. For several years, Methodists and Presbyterians hold alternate services here. So here is a picture. The church built by Sabra Billings, Billings Bridge, 1902. And then next it says, the tradition of holding public office continues into the second and third generation of the family. Bradish's sons, Charles and Samuel, followed by grandson Hugh Bradish I, filled a variety of roles from clerk to trustee to justice of the peace. So this Township of Gloucester Embossing Press. Charles Murray Billings moved into the Billings Estate with aunts Sabra and Sally in 1910. Although other homes in the area have electricity and indoor plumbing, he continued to make do with oil lamps and an outhouse. So that is a chamber pot, and this is an oil lamp. Charles Billings decided to run for a seat in the provincial legislature in 1883. Although he loses the election, he is recognized as a respected leader in the community. So this is a election notice, Charles Billings for Russell County, province of Ontario. Billings Bridge Methodist Church is built by Sally in 1890. It is eventually used as a primary school in 1908 and then a post office. The building is demolished in 1959. So in there, I'm not sure if you can see it, but that is a ceremonial trowel. Building of Billings Bridge Methodist Church, 1890. So this is the Methodist Church in Billings Bridge. Right, and then next, Hugh Bradish Billings I buys a Cadillac, the family's first automobile, in 1909, almost a full decade after cars first appeared on Ottawa streets. So that explains why there was a Cadillac garage I showed you outside. And this is Billings Estate Manor House in 1900. Wow, here is a fascinating old telephone. Charles Murray Billings has the estate first telephone installed in 1916, almost 10 years after service is available to homes in Billings Bridge. Okay, and then here's the house. Billings Estate Manor in 1950. So you can see that it changed. And this is the house in 1925. Electricity finally comes to the Billings Estate. Charles Alexander Billings has the utility installed in the 1940s, almost 30 years after other homes in the neighborhood are wired. Queen Elizabeth made her first visit to Canada in 1957. The Billings proudly raised the Union Jack in her honor. Radio is a major source of information and entertainment in the 1950s. Listen in on one of the programs Charles Alexander Billings and his wife Bee may have tuned into while living here. So this is a silver tone radio from 1950. Right, so lastly, preserving the past. Lemire and Bradish, their sons, daughters, and grandchildren prospered here by farming and by gradually selling off pieces of their land. Most of the property had been sold to developers by the 1950s to provide housing for the region's rapidly growing population. In 1975, when the last of the Billings family decided to move out, local heritage groups convinced the city of Ottawa to save the heritage property. The Billings Estate was designated a National Historic Site and opened as a museum. It stands as a testament to the pioneering family that began the world here. So these are house keys. And then this is a picture of what the house looks like now. All right, so now we are going to go explore the outside more, because there's a few more things I need to show you, like the back of the house and the cemetery. All right, so let's go check it out. Okay, I am now back in front of the house, and now I'm going to take you to the back to show you what it looks like. And I can just point out that heading that way takes you to the cemetery, which I will show you after this. Okay, so it's a really peaceful back here. There's a little bench right there. Okay, and this is what the house looks like from the back. And there's a bunch of really nice gardens here. And then, as I mentioned earlier, so this is where the tea parties happen, and you need to reserve a spot to attend them online. And so I will put a link in the description for you if you want to check that out further, if that's of interest to you. So the front and the back look pretty much the same. The level of detail on this home is incredible. Okay, so there's one placard here that I can read to you. As a young man, Bradish Billings had left home to seek his fortune in lumbering when he came upon this choice piece of property at the edge of the Rideau River. He set down roots here, building a rough-hewn shanty that served as home while he worked the timber trade. A year later, he replaced it with a small log cabin where he and his young wife, Lemira, began the world together. As they acquired more land and succeeded at farming, they eventually were able to move their growing family up the hill into the grand house behind you. Here's just the images on the map. Alright, I'm now going to take you to see the cemetery that is located right next to the house. So it's a nice, peaceful treed spot over here. And there's the cemetery sign. And there's the cemetery. Taking on a tour in a second. First, I'm just going to read you this sign here. This quiet corner of the Billings Estate is one of the oldest graveyards in Ottawa. The area nearest the iron fence was reserved for Bradish and Lemira Billings and their descendants. Beyond that is the final resting place of others from the community. The cemetery began in 1820 as a small clearing in the woods within view of the house. By the time Bradish Billings had died in 1864, the site had been expanded to include a former sheep pen. With the death of Lemira in 1879, further improvements were made, including the addition of a decorative strap iron fence that can still be seen today. Research suggests that there may be as many as 18 family members buried here. The most recent was John Roger Billings, whose ashes were interred in 1861. The original grave markers deteriorated over time and were replaced in the 1930s with white marble tombstones. Most were engraved with a weeping willow as a symbol of sorrow and of eternal life. Follow the fence line westward to learn more about the settlers' graveyard. Right, let's go explore the graveyard. Alright, so here is Bradish Billings, 1783 to 1864. Sorry for my shadow. Lemira Dow, 1796 to 1879. Sabra Billings, 1815 to 1912. Bradish Billings Jr., 1819 to 1871. Samuel Billings, 1821 to 1910. Sally Billings, 1822 to 1915. Charles Billings, 1825 to 1906. Maria Murray Billings, 1825 to 1908. And Amelia Traveler, 1842 and 1926. All right, so there's more over here we can explore. This one's hard to read. Isabel Daisy Susan Terry LeBreton, 1882 to 1919, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. Here's a really nice one. In loving memory of Samuel Baker and Frederick Walter. Samuel Baker died November 21st, 1880, age 60. And Frederick Walter died August 7th, 1898. Only 1 year old. That's really sad. This one is hard to read, unfortunately. Let's get closer. I think it says Elizabeth Cumming, wife of Isaac Browse. Yes, at the top it says Browse. This Archibald Beaumont died August 10th, 1891. Here's a little one. It's hard to read. I think it says Mary Ann Birch. Died in 1921, age 75. Interestingly, I just noticed that there's one way over in the corner there, which I'll go check out in a second after I look at these ones. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to go in there, so I will. Hard to read. The name is Evans. It's hard to read the rest. Okay, there's another one here. And there's flowers. There's flowers here. This is Maggie Smith, wife of Robert Presto. I can't read the date. 1870, I believe it says. Okay, there is one last one over here before I go check out the one in the corner. In loving memory of Marilla Marr, I think it says. Kind of hard to read. I think it says born in 1814 and died 1900. Okay, and then last one I'll go look at is this one in the corner. I'm kind of curious why it's in the corner over here. Valili? George Bellili died July 9th, I think it says 1903, age 67 years old. I wonder why he's over in the corner. Alright, well, that was a fascinating tour. And then, of course, there's those stones that that were broken that you can also see in the garage that I showed you earlier in this video. All right. And there's one last sign here I just discovered with more information of who is in here. The Settler's Graveyard. The Billings family generously set aside land as a burial ground for neighbors, friends, and others from the community. Plots were open to people from different walks of life, religious denominations, and social strata. Records indicate that as many as 140 people are buried here. Among them are farm laborers, tradesmen, a school teacher, a dentist, and a lawyer. Some lived well into their 80s, while others did not survive childhood. Tuberculosis, cholera, typhoid fever, pneumonia, cancer, and heart disease took their toll, along with a number of accidental deaths. In 1820, Mrs. Andrew Berry, mother-in-law of Isaac Firth, a well-known Bytown tavern keeper and friend to Bradish Billings, was the first to be buried on this little hillside. The familiar names of several other notable families may be found on the list of people resting here. For example, Abraham Dow, who was Lamira Billings' older brother and the namesake for Dow's Lake. Oh, I did not know the history of the name of Dow's Lake. That is actually very fascinating. Here is a list of the names that are in this graveyard. Thank you for joining me on this tour today of Billings Estate Museum. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoy videos about things to do in Canada, please subscribe to my channel. Until next time, happy travels!